welcome back to my channel. So this week's technique is transfer work. Now I do really enjoy working with lace structures, as you may have noticed. So this week I thought I would try to combine it with wheel deflection, because I tend to use just a one prong tool usually. So for this one I've used a 3-prong tool, which creates this fashioning effect on the front, and I've also done a slightly different cast on to give that beautiful edge on here. So you can see it's quite uneven, it creates a sort of wave there. And I have used 4 yarns on here. So I've got my cotton tape, which is my absolute favorite, and then the shiny viscose 4-ply cotton mercerized and metallic there. So I hope you enjoy this demonstration, and do message me on Instagram or here if you are unsure about anything regarding the demonstration. Okay, so what we're going to do, start off with, is push out every other needle. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and cast on. So I am going to start off by using this cotton tape yarn, and I will be using E-wrap cast on method and casting on every other needle. So the number of needles just depends on how wide you really want it, but I will explain that to you in about a moment when I start knitting. Okay, so I've gone ahead and cast it on, and I'm going to thread my feeder up with that yarn, and my tension is on 9. And what I'm going to do before I go forward with the knitting is push forward all of the other needles into working position. Okay, so it creates like an eyelet and also the wavy effect once we start to do the technique. So I've knitted 1, and I'm going to do a total of 4 rows in this yarn. Now I tend to do a few rows before I hang my comb on, so I'm going to go ahead and hang my weights on now. I always like to use these big rubber weights. I know everyone has a different preference, so there's no right or wrong, but I don't personally like claw weights at all. So it really just depends on what you get on with in regards to knitting. Okay, so I'm just going to do 1 more row, and that's done. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and change the yarn to the shiny viscose, which is this one here. Again, all my yarns are linked down in the comments section, I think, or in the introduction section of the video, so go and check them out. Okay, so the tension that I'm going to stick around with is 5 for all of my yarns. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is go ahead and grab a 3-prong transfer tool, that one here, and we are going to be working in sets of 4 and 7. Okay, so I'm going to start from the center. So the center is going to be 7 needles, so that's 3 on the left and 3 on the right, plus 1 extra, so it's kind of like slightly off center, but it really doesn't matter. Okay, so 7 needles. So that's 7 needles. I'm not pushing it forward, I'm just showing you the layout. Okay, so that's 7 here, and then you've got 4 in between, and then 2, 4, 6, 7, then 4 in between here, and 7. Okay, so now these sets of 7 are where we're going to be doing our wheel deflection with a 3-prong transfer tool. Okay, and these sets of 4, the ones in between, which are the set number 1 and set number 2, is where we're going to be doing our eyelets. Okay, so again, just to make it easier, so I'm going to start off by doing it in the center. So now we've picked 7 needles. Okay, so we've got to take the center needle and just push it back into normal position, and I'm just going to push forward the left 3 and transfer these 3 over to the center by 1. Okay, so all I'm doing is I'm moving it over by 1. That leaves me with 1 empty needle left in working position, and now I'm going to take the right 3 of the 7. Okay, the center needle is untouched. I'm not doing any transfer work. I'm going to take the right 3 and move it over to the left to the center again by 1, okay? So now essentially the center needle, which is this one here, has 3 stitches. It's got its own stitch, it's got the stitch from the left, and it's got a stitch from the right, okay? And that is what creates a little fashioning line in the front of the knit. So you've always got to pick an odd number to work with for that effect or technique, okay? Now I've done my set of 7 transfer, and now I'm going to do the next set of 7, okay? We're just leaving the 4s at the moment, and I'll show you in about a minute what we're going to do with those. So you're transferring over by 1 on the left and the right hand side towards the center. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do that here. So I'm doing 3 sets of 7s and 2 sets of 4s, okay? Now the 4, which is this one here and this here, okay? What I'm going to do on the left hand side, I am going to take that last needle, so the 4th needle essentially, transfer it over to the left and push that empty needle to the back, okay? The empty needle of the set of 4. And then I'm going to pick the next stitch, so I'm leaving that stitch that I've just transferred onto the next needle as it is, and then I'm taking the second stitch of the set of 4 and transferring to the left again. And now that empty needle goes all the way to the back of the bed. Now on this set I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to do it from the left hand side. So taking the first stitch, moving it over to the right, and then taking the 3rd stitch, moving it over to the right. So we're just reversing it. Okay, now the empty needles that you've got on the back of the bed in non-working position are just 4 in total, okay? And they're both from the set of 4 needles. We're leaving the 7s all in working, okay? I'm going to go ahead and knit 2 rows in my viscose. So that's 2 done. Now within that set of 4, which is that center needle here and center needle here, I'm going to go ahead and transfer that stitch over to the left on the left hand side and over to the right on the right hand side, okay? And now I'm going to push that needle all the way to the back of the bed to non-working position. So now I've got a set of 3 empty needles on each side, okay? And now I'm going to continue to do my transfer on my set of 7. So this transfer, what we're doing on the set of 7 needles, is going to happen in the same manner on the same set of needles every 2 rows. Okay, you've got to do it on the same set of needles every 2 rows to create that fashioning effect on the front of your knit. Now, if you do it on the wrong needles, or if you do it every few rows, it's not going to work. So you've got to do it on every 2 rows. I've done my transfer work, and now I'm going to go ahead and knit 2 more rows. Okay, and now I'm going to push forward the center needle of the empty set on the left and the right hand side into working position, so it picks it up. Go ahead and do your wheel deflection again. So again, just repeating the same thing every 2 rows really. I think the only thing that you've got to remember is the eyelet layout that I'm doing for you. I'll show it to you, sorry. Once you get the hang of it, you should find it slightly easier, to be honest. Okay, so now we've got 2 empty needles on the back on the left hand side and 2 on the right hand side. I've done 4 rows in my viscose. Now I'm going to change my yarn to the 4 plank mercerized cotton and do knit 2 rows. And now I'm going to go ahead and do my wheel deflection again in those 3 sets of 7. It is a lot easier than it looks. It's just the camera position for me is a bit awkward. So don't let me put you off. Okay. Right, so I've done my 7s, and now I'm going to go ahead and push one needle, so it's the left empty needle on the left set of 4 into working position, and the right empty needle on the set of 4 on the right hand side into working position. So now I've only got 1 empty on the left and 1 empty on the right. Go ahead and do 1 row, and now push the other 2 empty needles into working position and knit another row. I'm going to change my yarn to the metallic viscose. Okay, so it's 2 ends of the fine yarn. So it's that one here. And repeat, okay? So I'm doing my transfer on my 7s first, just to make it easier. And now I'm going to knit 2 rows. And essentially now all we're going to do is repeat that set again. So I'm just going to do it once more, otherwise we're just going to be here forever. Okay, so transferring the 7s first. At this point, all of my needles are in working position. Okay, and I'm going to transfer the next 7. When I say the next 7, I really do mean next set of 7, not transferring 7 needles. That's done, and now I'm going to go ahead and do my eyelet transfer on my set of 4 and push those needles all the way to the back of the bed into non-working position. That's done, and now I'm going to knit in my viscose yarn, 2 rows, and now I'm firstly going to transfer that center needle out and leave the empty 3 needles all the way to the back of the bed into non-working position to create a ladder. Knit 2 more rows in the viscose. Change your yarn to the 4-ply cotton. And do the set of 7 first. And now push the center needle into working position out of those empty needles on both sides. Knit 1, knit 2, push the left needle on the left hand side and the right needle on the right hand side into working position. Go ahead and do your transfers again on the sets of 7 needles. if you do find it hard to tell which needles are the ones that you need to do the transfer on, which is in your set, that is, all you've got to do is locate the eyelet, and it'll be the set right above it. Okay, go ahead and do one of those. Sorry, go ahead and do one row and then push the others into working and knit 2, and then change your yarn to the metallic viscose. And then do your transfer. Now knit 2 rows, and that's it. That's the repeat done. So it's actually a really beautiful technique, and it's quite open, as you can tell. So there are variations that you can do, of course. So instead of using the 3-prong tool, you can actually use the bigger ones. So you get sets of 7, which is that one here. So you can try actually widening the layout a little bit. And of course, depending on what needles you push forward to get the needles back into knitting will, of course, change the outcome of your design, and changing the color layout, and also, obviously, as always, changing your yarns. So if I just show you another swatch that I've done as a variation to this one here, you might get an idea of what I mean. So this was another swatch that I did before I did this one that I've just shown you. Now, the difference in this is obviously the yarns that I've used. I've used the tape one, and I've used the one, the viscose that actually shrinks when you press it, and also the cotton. What I have done differently is I've done the same needle layout, but I've actually included tuck stitch, as you can see here. So I've done tuck stitch here, as you can see there, which kind of makes it look slightly different, and also what it does is it makes it slightly 3D, so it kind of puckers up a bit, and also the choice of the yarn, which is the stretchy viscose that shrinks, it kind of like pulls it in slightly, so it gathers it up a little bit. So yeah, that's slightly different, but it's quite beautiful. I did like them both. I wasn't sure which one to show you, so I thought if I just show you the swatch, you might get an idea. I hope you enjoy the demonstration. If you do have any questions, please do feel free to comment below, and I'll be happy to help, and I hope I'll see you next week. Bye.